Okay, I'm back. Happy Wednesday. I'm going to get us started here. I have 12:59. I'll just give a couple announcements quick before we run through this. So we'll start right at 1 o'clock. We had a question already as we get started here. Somebody asked, will this webinar be recorded? Yes. So it will be recorded. We do record all our webinars. We will email them out to you, a link of the recording. But also, all our recorded webinars go on our Facebook page, or our YouTube page, rather. So if you want to watch any of our recorded webinars for the last couple of years that we've done, there's a lot of them up there. Go to youtube.com Crow and Associates, or just Google YouTube Crow and Associates. But anyway, you can see them all up there as well. But we will email you the recording, and we'll email you our YouTube handle, I guess you call it, so you can go on there and access all of the recordings if you want to look at any of the various topics we have. A couple of quick things. I obviously take questions on these webinars. If you have a question, go ahead and ask it into the webinar. I will usually answer it at the end because I do take questions and I answer them. Unfortunately, I'm just not skilled enough, or maybe just not smart enough to kind of look at the questions and think and answer them as I go through the webinar. So we do webinars usually every Wednesday and Thursday. For the last couple weeks and the next few weeks, we're going to only do them one day a week. For example, I think our one next week is Thursday. We send emails out for invites for it. And we're always open to suggestions for topics. We had an agent actually from a webinar a couple weeks ago gave us a suggested topic for next week, which we're going to use. So we're going to use that topic, so thank you. Unfortunately, it's kind of a hard one, but I guess not his fault. He's making me do some work. So anyhow, so questions, send them into the webinar. I'll answer at the end. We'll send out the recording. And what we're going to talk about today is Medicare commission details. The reason we're going to talk about this is because, well, we're going to hit a couple things, I should say. First of all, we're going to go over what the CMS Max commission is every year and what it is for 2023. It's very public, easy to find, but I'll just mention that. And that's one thing, to be able to look at the commission and say, okay, here's what they pay for a new and here's what they pay for a renewal, but the devil's in the details with this because oftentimes you don't get that amount. So that's what we're going to touch on today, is putting some logic behind how you get those payments. Well, I don't know if you can really put any logic behind it, quite frankly, but I'm going to make it logical to understand what their logic is, I guess, is how I should put it. So our topics, we're going to talk about the CMS Max commission. I'll show you what that is for those who don't know it. We'll talk about the initial and the true-up commission, prorated cases that comes into play a lot of times, and I think people tend to forget about it, especially people new to the Medicare Advantage and PDP business. What you get for commissions when you do an MA to MA sale. So they have an Advantage plan and you sell them an Advantage plan. The delayed in commission payments during AEP. Talk about renewals, and then also chargebacks and overrides, and specifically chargebacks on overrides and prorating on overrides. Got a lot of people coming on here as we're getting started. Again, if you have questions, just send them into the webinar. I'll ask at the end, and we do record this and we'll send it out. One other thing I forgot to mention is, for future reference, you want to watch one of our upcoming webinars and you're not available at that time. If you simply register for it, you don't have to attend, just register, and we send the recording to everybody that registers, whether they attend or not. So, okay, so, and our webinar today should probably go about 15 minutes, I would say. All right, so first of all, the CMS Max commission is, most of you probably already know, CMS sets the max commission every year when it comes to Medicare Advantage plans and Part D plans. So they state what the maximum amount is an agent can receive for a given type of MA or PDP sale. It's a max. The carriers don't have to pay that max, although almost all of them do. I am familiar with a couple really kind of regional, not even regional, state-specific carriers that don't, but all the big ones do, and pretty much all of them do at this point. The commissions, if you were curious, they've gone up for the last 6 years. I think it's actually 7, but I put 6. I never said I was accurate, I guess. But anyway, so they've gone up last 6 years straight. They break the commissions, they being CMS, breaks the commissions, max commissions, into 4 groups. So you got California and New Jersey, Connecticut, PA, and DC are their own category. Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, and then all other states fall into the 4th category. So just remember the order of these, because the commissions are next. So California and New Jersey are the most. Connecticut, PA, DC are second most. Puerto Rico and Virginia are the Virgin Islands are the least. I don't know why I put them third. And then all other states are the third most. So my list was a little out of order. Anyway, having said that, here's the amounts. Okay, so as you can see, California, New Jersey, you've got $750 and $375. I'll get into the details of this, but that's what you get for a new MA sale. $750. The renewal is $375. As long as the case stays on the books, you're going to get that. The Connecticut PA bracket is $678 and $339. The Puerto Rico bracket is $411 and $206. And then all other states, and that includes Florida, New York, pretty much all of them. That's gone to $601 and $301. These are the 2023 amounts. Part D is the same in every state. They don't break that into brackets. And for Part D sales, a new Part D will be $92 with a $46 renewal. Keep in mind, CMS only regulates Advantage and Part D plans. They do not regulate Medicare supplements, so Medicare supplements do not follow any of these rules. They don't have max commission schedules, not applicable. So as a result, you will see the Medicare supplement commissions all over the board in regard to the amount, depending on the company and the state you're in, and a bunch of other factors. So it's one thing to say you get these commissions. You sell a new Advantage plan, you get the commissions, that's the renewal. Looks easy. A lot of details with this. First of all, for those who are newer, when you get paid on a Medicare Advantage sale or even a Part D drug plan sale, the payment, so let's say you write a brand new Medicare and you're going to get the full payment, it's broken into two pieces. You get the initial payment and then you get the true up. So you get that, for example, that $750, if you wrote a case in New Jersey, will come in two halves. So the way they do that is the initial pays fairly quickly. And by the way, most companies will pay you on your plans prior to the effective date. There are some still, certainly, some of the Blues and some others that will wait until after the effective date of the policy to pay you, but most of the carriers will pay you prior to the effective, within a couple weeks after submitting the case, let's say. So you don't have to wait. If you write somebody who's turning 65 and you write them, 3 months ahead of time, you don't have to wait 4 months to get your payment. You'll get it in a couple weeks with most carriers. Anyhow, the reason they break it up is the initial comes in, and then they are doing a feed to CMS to see if this was actually new to Medicare. And if it was, CMS verifies it, and then the company gives you the true-up payment. So that makes you whole in two pieces. And as I mentioned, most companies pay prior to the effective date. Usually the way it works is, and some companies are faster than others. Some will pay very quickly. But you write your case, you get your initial, and then anywhere from, depending on the company, from 2 to 5 weeks, if there was a new to Medicare sale, that true-up will come in. And then you'll be whole on that commission amount. So when do you get those full amounts? When we're referencing those here, when do you actually get that $750, or if you're in PA, that $678, or if you're in New York, that $601? Well, you get it if it's new to Advantage. So if it's a new Advantage sale. So in other words, you enroll a person who never had a Medicare Advantage plan, you're going to get the full payment. However, there's some catches, and we get this a lot. We'll get calls all the time saying, hey, I wrote somebody, they were on a supplement, they never had an Advantage before, I wrote them and I didn't get the full commission. Well, the reason for that is because if they had a Part D plan at any point. So oftentimes when somebody has a supplement, they'll have a Part D, or maybe you run into somebody who's on help and they don't have anything, and you're thinking, well, they don't have anything. But remember, if somebody gets Medicaid, or and in most states LIS, any of the MSP programs, they will be auto-enrolled in a drug plan many times. And if that person had a drug plan in place when you wrote them new to Advantage, you're not going to get full commission in some cases because it's going to be prorated. So let me explain that. Prorating simply means, so this was the first time they ever had Advantage, never had an Advantage plan before, but they had a Part D in place, let's say. Well, if you wrote them for 1-1, you don't worry about it. You're going to get the full commission. But let's say you wrote this person for 7-1, and they had a Part D plan in place. That makes it, because the D was in place, it makes it subject to being prorated. And that simply means they're only going to pay you for the number of months that the person's going to be enrolled in the plan. In other words, you enrolled them for 7/1, they're only going to be enrolled for half the year, so it's going to be prorated. So you're going to get full commission, new and true up and initial and true up, but you're only getting half of that because it's prorated. So they were only going to be enrolled for 6 months of the year, so you're getting half a commission. I just talked over my slide, of course. As I said, what if they had a Part D plan? Well, you'll still get the full payment, so they're still going to pay in full. But I gave some examples here, luckily. So you sell somebody brand new to Advantage. They never had it before. However, they had a Part D in place when you sold it. So the Advantage obviously kicked them out of the Part D. And you sold them for a 4/1 effective date. Well, since it was 4/1, it's going to be prorated because of the Part D plan that was in place. And you're going to get 8/12 of the whole commission. The good news about this is no matter what effective date you sell somebody for, the renewal is going to start in January. So if you wrote somebody for 4/1, you're going to get paid 8/12 of the commission. However, the renewal is going to start January 1st. So if you think about it, what if you enrolled somebody for 12/1? If they were brand new to Medicare, didn't have a Part D in place, or never had an Advantage plan, in that scenario, you're going to get the full commission, right? Because it's not prorated. They didn't have a Part D in place. They didn't have an Advantage plan. You're going to get the full commission, and the renewal starts in January. If you write somebody for January, then your renewal isn't going to start until the following January. Also keep in mind, Medicare supplements have no impact on this. So just to revert back for a minute, you sell somebody a Medicare Advantage, they never had an Advantage, they never had a Part D, they had nothing, but they had a Med Supp. Doesn't matter. You're going to get the full payment regardless of when you write it, and it's not going to be prorated. So the supplement plays no part in it. It's that Part D drug plan that does it. So again, I already talked over my example, but you sell somebody brand new to MA, they had no prior Advantage plan, they didn't have a PDP, you sell them for 12/1. You're going to get a full commission. It will not be prorated, so it's going to be the whole $750, for example, if you're in California. And then a month later, the renewal is going to start. So essentially, you're kind of getting paid twice in that case. That's why it's so profitable to write new to Medicare people or brand new to Advantage people late in the year. And that's when we have a seminar program that I usually talk about. I didn't on this presentation, but we have agents that run seminars year-round with a program we use, and they average 50, 60 people a seminar, and they will run a lot of them later in the year. They'll run them all year, but we get a lot of them late year, like September, October, November, for T65s, because obviously it's full commission and they're getting paid the renewal starting in January. So same thing. What if you sold that same case for a 12/1 effective, but they had a PDP, unfortunately for you? Well, because they had a PDP, it's going to be prorated, and you're going to get 1/12 of that commission, only 1/12 of the full commission. So it's going to be a very small amount, $20-some. The only good news in that is your renewal will start in January, so that's a good thing. Okay, next scenario. You write somebody an MA, a Medicare Advantage plan, but they already had an Advantage plan, so you're switching them from one Advantage with a different company to another Advantage with a new company. So you get kind of double hit on this one. Because it's MA to MA, you're only getting half a payment, the renewal payment. That's all you're going to get. It's going to be advanced, but you're getting half a payment. And it's subject to being prorated. So if you write somebody during AEP, they have an Advantage, you switch them to another Advantage, you're going to get half a commission payment, basically. However, what if you sell somebody for 11/1? And I use an example of PA here. So you sell them for January 1, no problem, because it's January 1, there's no prorating. You're going to get the full $339 renewal payment, and it'll be on an advance. But what if you sell somebody 11/1 effective, and you moved them from one MA to another? Well, in that case, you're only going to get half the payment, the renewal payment, and it's going to be prorated. So you're only going to be paid for 2 out of 12 months in that scenario. But again, however, the renewal will start in January. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a little better understanding, because like I said, we get a ton of calls for people saying, I think I should have gotten full commission here and I didn't. And then we'll start to question, well, was there any potential a Part D was in place? Or sometimes they're new to this business, and they'll switch somebody from one Advantage to another and be shocked that they only got 50% of half of a renewal payment. Well, that's because they wrote them for 7/1. But anyway, hopefully that'll give a little clarity there. Okay, the AEP delay. Look, a lot of people on the phone on this call probably already know this, but the rule is carriers can't pay out commissions during for MA or PDP during the AEP. That means cases that use the AEP election. So you sell someone on October 20th, let's say during AEP using the AEP election, sell them on October 20th for a 1/1 start using the AEP. That carrier usually pays within a week or two. In this scenario, you're not going to get paid. You're going to get paid in January because they can't pay it during the AEP. And again, this only applies to MA and PDP plans. It does not apply to med subs or hospital indemnity, dental, vision, anything like that, because those are not CMS regulated. But you just got to factor that in, especially if you're new to the business, don't have a book. You write a bunch of people during AEP, you're going to have a delay. Most of the companies will pay the commission. A lot of them now in early January. Some of them, mid to late January. But again, you write people in October, November, December, and you're not getting paid till January. Medicare Advantage commissions are paid on advance with pretty much a majority of the companies, I'll say. There are some that still pay as earned, but most of them pay on in advance. So, you write them a case, it's going to be advanced for the remainder of the year, basically. What about renewals? All right, so once you write somebody, it doesn't matter when you write them. You write them for 1/1, you write them for 6/1, 7/1, 8/1. Once it hits the following January, it's going to go to renewal, assuming it stays on the books. Renewals always start in January for MA and PDPs, and almost every company pays renewals as earned. There are a few exceptions to that, but most of them will pay it as earned. So the example there is, if the renewal compensation in New York is $301 for an Advantage, once it hits renewal, you're going to get paid monthly, $25.08 per month per case. Now, if you write somebody, let's say, in January, and then the following AEP you move them to a different Advantage plan, it's going to re-advance your commission, because if you write somebody in January and then the following January they stay on the same plan, then it's going to go to as earned renewal. But if you write them in January and then the following AEP for January, you move them to a different Advantage, it's not going to go to as earned renewal, then it's going to be another advanced renewal. It refreshes the advance, so to speak. We do get a lot of agents that I think at times intentionally do that just to front the money. I was always thought differently of that. I liked letting my as-earned renewals really build up. I mean, my peak, my book was around 1,800 clients, give or take. And, the money got substantial when you kept enough of them on the books and let them, and they added up, and you really were surprised in the following January how big your monthly renewals were getting from the as-earned piece of it. So I was never big into purposely changing somebody's plan just to re-advance my renewals. I mean, I changed them if I needed to, but other than that, I just kind of thought it was revenue neutral and kind of a waste of time, to be honest. So kept them in the existing plan if it made sense. Okay, chargebacks. So this question comes up often. The topic of rapid disenrollments. So I think the rules, if you read them, it looks like it says if the person's enrolled for 3 months and then disenrolls, you don't get the rapid disenrollment. That's not really the case. The case is they have to make it into the 4th month. So if you have somebody that you write, they cancel the plan. Let's say they call in during the 3rd month after you've written them, they call and they cancel. So at the end of the 3rd month, they're switching to a different plan or doing something else. You'll be like, well, they made it 3 months. Well, they got to make it into the 4th. So if they cancel in that 3rd month, you're going to get a rapid disenrollment. And that means they will charge you back the entire commission. Now, if they make it into the 4th month and then disenroll, they call during the 4th month and switch plans or do something like that for the 1st of the next month, well, they made it into the 4th month then. So on the 5th month when they switch plans, so you had them enrolled for 4 full months, you're not going to have a rapid disenrollment then, but you're still going to have a chargeback because you got paid when you enrolled them. You got paid for assuming their enrollment the rest of the year. They were only enrolled for 4 months, so you're going to have a prorated chargeback. So to make this easy, I enroll somebody in January. I get the full commission. They're brand new to Medicare. So I get paid full boat, let's say the $750. At the end of the fourth month, they disenroll or move to something else. I'm going to get 4/12, or I should say 8/12 of that commission will be charged back. I only keep 4/12 of it because they were only enrolled for 4 months. And I gave the example there. Someone enrolled new to MA in January and you received the full payment because they're brand new to Medicare, no Part D, didn't have an Advantage plan before. You got the full payment. But then they disenrolled at the end of June. Well, they were enrolled for 6 months of the year you were paid on. So as a result, you're going to be charged back half of that entire commission. Our overrides, so if somebody's part of an agency, are overrides subject to prorating and chargebacks? And the quick answer is yes. Yep, they are. So the overrides basically follow, in most cases, pretty much the same schedule, same rules with prorating, with chargebacks is a commission. So if you're an agency or an agent that's a GA, MGA, or SGA, and you're getting overrides and wondering why they look funny sometimes, well, it's because they're subject to the same rules. One notable exception I didn't put in here is, if you recall, I said that if you write using an AEP election during AEP, you don't get paid on that business during AEP. Some companies will pay the overrides during that time, however. Well, I threw a quick opinion in here, even though maybe nobody wants to hear it, but I just wanted to toss this one in there. I really think of Medicare as a recurring revenue business. I mean, that's why the books are worth so much, and that's why Medicare is so popular, is because it's not transactional. I mean, it's not like, not to talk down on final expense or any other business or, annuity business or anything like that. But, with those businesses, there's not a lot of renewals. So you got to keep writing and writing and writing. You build a big Medicare book, there's enough recurring revenue there, especially on a big book. We have agents that have 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 clients. You're going to get a whole lot of recurring revenue. And I kind of think of the business as that's the point of the Medicare business. So I guess my point here is, if you're writing Medicare business and not calling your existing clients during AEP, I really think you should think that through and think about it. We get a lot of agents that they're just constantly writing and building the book, but they never call their AEP clients. And really, it just doesn't make sense because there's statistics on this. If you call a client, an existing client, twice a year, let's say an agent had their book and they called all their existing clients twice a year, so once during the year and then once prior to AEP, that agent is on average going to retain about 95% of that book and maintain the renewals on it as a result. Versus an agent that doesn't call their existing book because maybe they're too busy just writing new business all year, that book's only going to retain at 65 to 70%. Over the course of time, that's going to make a massive difference in revenue. So if you're not calling your existing book, I suggest it. I mean, when my book got too big, I had people here in the office. We'd talk through the plans. We'd have a script. They'd make those calls for me. It wasn't humanly possible for me to do it, but they would do it for me. And I always retained that book, and it always built the renewals up a great deal. That's it. It's a quick one. I thought it would be. I see we do have a couple questions. I'm going to answer those. So we're done with me talking about Medicare commissions. Appreciate everybody attending today. Next week, as I mentioned, we had an agent a couple weeks ago that after a webinar mentioned a topic. I kind of cringed when I looked at it, but it's a good one. He said, could we talk about all the tricky benefits of original Medicare and MA? Things like prior auth rules, hospice, skilled nursing facility specifically, when people get discharged for not showing improvement. The crazy one of how are companies covering diabetic supplies? That seems to be just, the answer is it depends lately, but we're going to go over that, which gets a little tricky. So we're going to hit that one next week, which I think is a good one. There's some things in there. Even though I've been doing this forever, I've never really known the answer to a couple of them. All right, let's check and see if we have any questions. I think we do. Okay, will this webinar be recorded? Yes, it will. Somebody asked, I'll try to summarize this question. It's a little long. Somebody asked, at the time I had my largest book of clients, what was my average persistency rate and what was the number one reason for a small percentage who fell off the books? If you were still concentrating on a personal book of business, what would you have done to minimize those who dropped off? I think, okay, good question. So did I work on retaining my book? Not as hard as I should have initially. I started to learn over time that the more you contacted people, the less they fell off. So a couple things with this. My book pretty much retained completely. The small losses I have usually were people dying, quite frankly. And then if you write dual clients, it just comes with it. You're going to lose more duals than you will non-duals, non-dual advantage or supplements. So once we were actually actively calling my book prior to AEP, and we would call them once usually in May or June, and then we would call them in, very early October, to, say, hey, it's that time of year. Do you want to review? Here's what you have, that kind of thing. Once I was doing those things, I really didn't lose clients other than they would die. Or if I had some random duels, sometimes somebody just call them on the phone randomly and they'd move. But making calls to the book certainly retained it at a much greater rate, and it took some pressure off me. I didn't feel like I had to write quite as much, and I was still making more money. Good question. Looks like those are the only two we have. I usually get more than that, but we got one more, I guess. How do we deal with a client who may have been changed to another plan company without an SEP by another agent? So that's a good question. Obviously, in today's day and age, you've got all your telesales agencies that are making calls. And a couple quick things with that. If you have clients using GoodRx, you just got to understand, GoHealth has a deal with them. So if you have clients filling medications with GoodRx, permission to call is built in there. And GoHealth will call them very quickly, within a couple days, once they fill, because they have permission to do so. But again, we've all had telesales call clients who unfortunately answer the phone and get moved to a plan that probably isn't a good fit at all. But to answer your question, they do have an SEP to do it. They're just being tricky about it. A lot of times they're using Drug Help as an SEP. Sometimes they have a list of, or they're very familiar with the FEMA special elections, and there are a lot of them out there. For example, in New York last year, you had a gun election throughout the state. SEP gun would move somebody. Right now, like for example, in Connecticut, we have still a FEMA flood election from forever ago that you can still use with a lot of carriers. So they usually are just getting creative with that SEP. And there's not a lot you can do other than talk to that client and try to move them back. If the plan didn't fit, and try to get creative and find another election, or if you have to, if there's absolutely nothing, wait until AEP. Another question, if I change the client to a different plan with the same carrier, do I get paid? So, yeah, I'll put some context to this question. With most companies, not all, let's say a different agent wrote a client on an MA, and that company has multiple MA plans. And you call that client, with a special election or during AP or whatever, OEP maybe for that example, and you move them to the same carrier but a different plan, then yes, with most carriers you will get paid on that. What you won't get paid on is, let's say somebody has a UHC plan 3, just to say it quick, and you try to just write them another app for the same plan and add dental or something. You won't get paid on that. It's going to get kicked out as a duplicate. But with most companies, yep, different MA, same company, but one of their different MA plans, you'll be changed to the agent of record and get paid on it. Good question. Okay, we've got another one. I enrolled someone new to Medicare in October and they want to change to another carrier in January. Do I get paid? Well, if you enrolled them, I'm assuming it was an October effective date. If it was an October effective date, and then you move them to another plan in January, the way it's supposed to work is since you moved them, you should not get charged back. However, I find you will. So you've got October, November, December. They were in for October, November, December. They're in for 3 months. You are, because you're rewriting them as the agent, yeah, you're costing yourself money there because you enrolled them in a plan. You're likely going to get charged back once you change them. And then remember, if they were new to Medicare, you got the full payment. But if you moved them from later on to another MA, you went from a new payment, which you're going to get charged back on, and now you're in a scenario where you're writing them MA to MA, you're only going to get half a payment. So not only are you going to get charged back, you're also only going to get paid half as much, so it's going to cost you. Same thing. If you change them so the question was, what if I change them in February instead of January? Same thing. You're just not going to get a rapid disenrollment, but you're going to get a prorated chargeback. And then you're writing MA to MA, and you're only getting half a payment, and that's going to be prorated because it's a February 1. So you get 11/12 of half a payment. Okay, let's see. Unless we get any other stragglers, it looks like that is about it. Okay, so just remember, we'll email out the recording. YouTube, Crow and Associates, we have all our recordings up there. We will have a webinar next Thursday on the tricky topics. And other than that, no webinar tomorrow, so I appreciate you joining me. Thanks a lot. And I hope everybody has a great day. Oh, I was going to say one more thing. Keep in mind, I see a lot of people on this webinar that are with us already. And what I would say is, remember, we have our lead program. We have a lot of agents that don't use the $500 a month they get from us. And if you haven't looked into our seminar program, you definitely should. Phone number to call us, 203-796-5403. It is on our emails that we send out. But 203-796-5403. So thanks for attending today, and I hope everybody has a great day.